Welcome to Aflame for Christ, homilies to set your heart on fire with love for Jesus Christ. My name is Father Joseph Gill, a priest of the Diocese of Bridgeport, Connecticut, and you've joined us on this sixth Sunday of Easter. So as the Greek Empire stretched around the Mediterranean Sea, one of the effects was that people started to read and write in Greek rather than in the old Egyptian hieroglyphs. And after a while, everyone kind of forgot how to read this ancient Egyptian language. And so for centuries, these pictures remained such a mystery to archaeologists and researchers until a game-changing discovery in 1799, the Rosetta Stone. This stone told the same story in 3 different languages, allowing people to place the Greek writing side by side with the hieroglyphs. And for the first time in the modern world, archaeologists were able to interpret this mysterious language. But life can be mysterious too. Why are we here? What's the meaning of suffering? And how can we find happiness? What's the secret to a good marriage? Is there a life after death? I remember one time coming across a book entitled 10 Best Guesses About Life. The author said he didn't have any actual answers, but here were his 10 best guesses about those deep questions that plague every human being. But my goodness, doesn't your heart cry out for something deeper than just a best guess? Right? We need some sort of Rosetta Stone, some rock-solid interpretive key to understanding what life is all about. And thanks be to God, we have that in our Catholic faith. You see, faith is the interpretive key to making sense out of the mystery of life. Pope John Paul II once said, "It's only in the mystery of Christ that the mystery of man becomes truly clear." Yeah, psychology can help us understand ourselves. Maybe therapy can give us insights into our behavior, and science can shed some light on what it means to be human, but only our faith in Jesus Christ shows us where we've come from, how we are to live, and where we're going. So where have we come from? Well, many of you who grew up with the Baltimore Catechism remember the very first question. Who made you? God made you. Why did he make you? To know, love, and serve him so we can be eternally happy with him in heaven. It's really that simple. That's why we're here on this earth. Okay, how are we to live? Well, Jesus Christ, of course, is the model for our behavior. If you grew up in the 90s like I did, you may remember the phrase WWJD. What would Jesus do? It was plastered on posters, t-shirts, bracelets, any kind of Christian swag that my youth minister could find. And looking back, it was a little cringe, right? And it's a nice idea, but it's incomplete because we are to live not just like Christ, but in intimate union with Christ through grace. Right? In today's gospel, Jesus speaks about giving us the commandments, but also about giving us the Holy Spirit. We obey him, but with the strength given by grace. We are to live a pure, forgiving, merciful, courageous, trusting, surrendered life by his power in us. So that's how we are to live, right? As intimate union with Christ to become like Christ in this world. But where are we going? Well, our faith gives us that answer too, right? We were made for a better world, a place where all this brokenness and sin will be healed and mended. And this, our Catholic faith sheds light on every aspect of our life, not just these big existential questions, right? We can ask the question, well, what is my work for? Well, it's for developing our talents to the glory of God, serving others, and making it an offering to the Lord. What is the purpose of legitimate pleasure? Well, it's meant to be a foretaste of heaven. How are we supposed to have good friendships? By seeking people who are pursuing virtues themselves so that we can be positively influenced by them. What's the secret to a happy marriage? Well, imitating Christ's self-sacrificing love. How can we suffer well? Well, by offering it up to Jesus in love, allowing it to purge us of our faults. How do we make good choices? Well, by bringing them to prayer and seeking the Lord's will in our lives. How can we be truly happy? By loving God with our whole heart, our whole soul, whole mind, whole strength, and loving our neighbor as ourselves. It's our Catholic faith, really, that helps us to interpret the mystery of our human life. And so I have a homework assignment for you. Choose an aspect of your life that maybe you're confused or unhappy or just not at peace about. Maybe it's a relationship or your marriage or your job or some suffering you're enduring or maybe some other stress in your life. And this week, go and research what Christ has to say about this particular topic. Now, don't go to TikTok or YouTube, right? Go straight to the source, the Bible and the Catechism, because the answers are there if we know where to look. And if we start to see the world through the lens of our Catholic faith, what joy and meaning we're going to have. Right back in the early 1900s, there was a young man from Poland named Jan Taranowski. And he was a quiet man in his 30s. He was a tailor, an introvert, a man who kept to himself because he had bad health and just his quiet temperament. But one day he was at Mass, and the priest said from the pulpit, "It's not difficult to become a saint." Jan realized that this was indeed his calling, right? To become holy in his own life. And all of a sudden, his ordinary day-to-day life started to make sense. And so he started imbuing his work with prayer, offering his bad health to God as a sacrifice, studying the lives of the saints, frequenting the sacraments. And the priest noticed that this young man was becoming more and more fervent in his faith, so he asked him to help out with the parish youth group. But he was pretty reluctant because he was still painfully shy, but he ended up agreeing. But pretty soon, when the Nazis invaded Poland and took the priest into the Dachau concentration camp, the parish was left without any leadership. So Jan took it on himself to keep working with the youth. He met secretly in meetings in his apartment where young men would gather for fellowship, a spiritual talk, and praying the rosary together. So one day, a young man by the name of Karol showed up, and he was very impressed by Jan's spirituality. Just a regular, ordinary guy who was living his life for Christ. And Karol had been questioning the meaning of his own life, and hearing Jan speak about everyone's call to holiness, though, he realized that this was the purpose of his existence, to glorify and love God and to spend eternity in heaven. Young Karol decided to become a priest, and later on became a pope and a saint, St. John Paul II. For his part, Jan is now Venerable Jan Taranowski, on the path to sainthood himself, because he sought for answers in his life and found them in Jesus Christ and his Catholic faith. My friends, life is not a mystery when it's lived in the light of Christ, who reveals man to himself.